Most people expected Honda to either fully modernize the Shadow or quietly kill it off. But the surprising thing about the 2026 Shadow 750 is how stubbornly traditional it remains. And honestly, that might be exactly why it still works. I've been comparing newer cruisers lately, and many of them try so hard to look aggressive or futuristic that they lose the relaxed charm cruisers were built for. The Shadow still feels like a motorcycle made for people who actually ride, not just people who pose at gas stations. But here's the mistake I see riders make. They assume a 750cc cruiser is underpowered or outdated, especially when spec sheets today scream 100-plus horsepower numbers everywhere. In reality, when I think about everyday riding, traffic, weekend cruising, backroad runs, I rarely use all the power modern bikes offer anyway. The Shadow's V-twin gives smooth, usable torque right where you need it, without constantly begging you to ride faster than conditions allow. And the practical takeaway? A bike that feels manageable every day gets ridden more often than a powerful bike that intimidates or exhausts you. Another thing that surprised me is how comfortable the Shadow still feels compared to some so-called modern cruisers. Many newer bikes push aggressive ergonomics while pretending to be cruisers, and after an hour, your lower back reminds you you've made a mistake. On the Shadow, the seat height, handlebar reach, and foot peg placement just makes sense. It's unintimidating for new riders, but still relaxed enough for experienced ones. Yet, people often assume comfort means boring. I notice that when a bike is easy to ride, riders sometimes mistake that for lacking personality. But honestly, not fighting your motorcycle every minute actually lets you enjoy the ride more. My practical takeaway here is simple. Comfort isn't laziness, it's freedom to ride longer without fatigue, which matters more than flashy styling. Another point most riders overlook is maintenance and ownership stress. I've owned bikes that were exciting for 6 months and then became expensive headaches. Honda's Shadow lineup built its reputation on reliability, and from what I'm seeing, the 2026 model sticks to that formula. No unnecessary complexity, no features that break just out of warranty. But here's where some buyers get confused. They chase technology instead of asking whether they actually need it. Do you really need a giant touchscreen on a cruiser or adaptive suspension for relaxed weekend rides? Probably not. A good takeaway is this: simplicity often equals fewer problems and more time actually riding. Now, I'll admit something that surprised even me. When I compare the Shadow 750 to larger cruisers, especially 1100 or 1300cc bikes, the difference in real-world enjoyment isn't as big as spec sheets suggest. Yes, bigger engines feel impressive on paper, but heavier bikes also mean harder parking, slower low-speed handling, and more fatigue in city riding. The Shadow feels lighter, easier to live with, and most people miss this. A motorcycle that's easy to move around in your garage or parking lot becomes a motorcycle you'll actually use. A practical insight here: choose the bike you'll ride often, not the one that looks impressive online. Another thing I noticed is how approachable the Shadow remains for new riders without feeling disposable after experience grows. Some beginner bikes feel like stepping stones you quickly outgrow. The Shadow feels like something you can keep for years, customizing and adapting as your riding style evolves. But riders sometimes assume entry-friendly equals cheap. That's not really true here. Honda focuses on refinement where it counts: smooth throttle response, predictable braking, solid build quality. And the takeaway? A bike doesn't need to scare you to keep you interested. Confidence is often more fun than raw adrenaline. One small detail people overlook is fuel economy. With fuel prices constantly bouncing around, having a cruiser that doesn't drain your wallet matters. The Shadow's efficiency makes spontaneous rides easier because you're not thinking about fuel stops every hour. And here's the misconception again. Some riders think cruising slowly means sacrificing excitement. But I've realized something. Enjoying scenery, taking relaxed back roads, and riding stress-free sometimes beats chasing speed. A useful takeaway? Motorcycling isn't always about speed, it's about escape. And then there's styling. Honda didn't radically change the Shadow's look, which some people call boring. But when I compare it to bikes that age quickly because they follow trends, the Shadow's classic lines hold up over time. You won't look at it in 3 years and feel outdated.
Yet people often chase new trends. Practical advice? Timeless design keeps you happy longer than flashy styling that fades. So after looking at performance, comfort, ownership cost, usability, and overall riding experience, I keep coming back to one thought. The 2026 Honda Shadow 750 isn't trying to dominate headlines. It's quietly offering a dependable, comfortable, easygoing motorcycle for people who just want to ride. And honestly, in a world obsessed with bigger numbers and louder marketing, I kind of respect a bike that simply knows what it is and doesn't try to be anything else.